Good morning to you. I'm Fox 26 meteorologist John Dawson. I'm here to give you an update on Hurricane Beryl as it is begun to make its landfall. Hasn't officially made a landfall yet, but we're seeing the strongest of the rains and the winds that are associated with that eye wall beginning to make their impacts on land. So I think within the next hour, we will have a landfall with Hurricane Beryl. The 1 a.m. update has the winds increasing now to 80 miles an hour, and the pressure has dropped a little bit as well. And those are signs, again, of a strengthening system. What is the really good news, though, is that there's not any water left for this to keep strengthening. But I think it's going to maintain its strength that it has right now for a little bit longer as it begins to move over land. So we're continuing to watch this official landfall as it's going to take place within the next hour. And the National Hurricane Center will be the ones who make that official indication. But at this point, it does look like the way this is trying to ramp up in strength that we could continue to see hurricane force winds all the way as far north as Interstate 10, somewhere between Katy and the downtown Houston area. That's kind of the ballpark on where we're looking at this track headed, and then it will then rapidly weaken as it moves into 7 o'clock tonight. We're looking at only 45-mile-an-hour winds. By the time we get to early on Tuesday, we've got this even out of the state of Texas. So here's a look at the radar imagery, and again, it's hard to pick out that exact location of that eye. Maybe it's wobbling a little bit even as it begins to make its landfall. But again, it's very close, and you can see just round after round of these heavy, heavy rains. The winds are mixed in with that. That's all beginning to hit the Lake Jackson, the Freeport area. All that's going to continue over the next couple of hours, and you can begin to see the rains making their way into downtown Houston as well. And soon there's going to be mixing in a lot of those heavier downpours with it. So that's why we've been talking about for a while, everybody needs to be where they're going to be by midnight so that we can kind of have this storm move through and we can all shelter in place. Let's talk about winds for a minute. Again, this has got that counterclockwise rotation of the winds moving around that storm. Sustained winds, we've got 30-mile-an-hour winds in Galveston, 28 down in Freeport. Matagorda now coming in at 41 mile per hour sustained winds. So those tropical storm force winds already making their way into Matagorda. And then when we look at gusts that we've recorded, we've gotten 45-mile-an-hour gusts in Freeport. This is where we're really seeing the heaviest of the rain happening right now. And how about Palacios with 54-mile-an-hour wind gusts already recorded? So that's going to be something that we're continuing to watch as well. Let's take this county by county for just a minute on Beryl. This is Galveston County to begin with. The rainfall totals could be 5 inches of rain in Galveston County. The winds were certainly going to be in the range of 40 to 45 miles per hour. And the wind gusts could be even up to 75 miles an hour as this hurricane makes its landfall, and the storm surge 4 to 6 feet. And I do want to point out that that storm surge is all in Galveston Bay as well. So while we're talking county by county, I just want to point out that Harris County, Chambers County, these other counties around Galveston Bay also looking for that potential for that storm surge. Sliding down a little further to Matagorda County, impacts are a little bit higher overall. We're going to be looking for more rain because it's going to be closer to that eye. The winds are going to be higher as well. Gusts up to even 90 miles an hour with those maximum hurricane force winds. And that storm surge also going to be just a little bit higher right along the coast. And then we'll slide back and take a look at Brazoria County here. Similar characteristics with that 5 to 10 inches of rain. Isolated areas even more than that. It could be in the 10 to 15 inches of rain in the isolated areas. Generally 5 to 10 inches of rain. Winds 55 to 70 miles an hour, very close to where that landfall is taking place. Gusts even up to 95 miles an hour. Storm surge in that 4 to 7 feet range as well. So here's that storm surge warning. I talked about all around Galveston Bay how you need to be prepared going down the coast. Sort of that peak storm surge from Brazoria County down to the south is where we'll see the highest of the level. Galveston and north, we're definitely looking at a concern. As far as the winds, we do see a tropical storm warning for just about all of the viewing area. That's going to be those winds that range from 40 to 70 miles an hour. That's a huge window. That's a big range of storms. It's a much different, a 40 mile an hour wind is a whole lot different than a 70 mile an hour wind. But that's what we have happening, and where we see that path, that track where we're taking it, closer to that, we will have the higher winds. So as I talked about, basically somewhere between Katy and downtown Houston, we expect that center of the storm to be making its track. So over further away from that point is where we'll have these 40 mile an hour winds, as opposed to much closer to 70 on that track. And then down along the coast, where we still have that strength from the ocean, we'll have even higher winds, and that's why we have the hurricane warning, where we'll expect winds of 74 miles an hour or greater. Look at these wind gusts from some of our computer modeling now. And again, these are gusts. They're not the sustained winds, but we could be seeing some 77 mile an hour gusts up in the Alvin area, northern Brazoria County, let's call it. And then as that center moves on through, we'll continue to see possibly 70 mile an hour gusts, but even up in the woodlands, we're pushing some possibilities of 60 or 70 mile an hour gusts. And we'll see this computer model taking the track a little bit further to the west. I think probably it'll slide over a little bit further this way to the east, but still all of those powerful winds will be moving. The biggest threat, of course, with the winds is the fact that it's going to knock down trees on power lines. And so that's going to be what's helping to cause the power outages that we're going to be dealing with. So that's going to be the biggest worry. When we look at our Fox model, you're going to be able to see all the rain that's happening with this particular landfall. We've got all these rain and rain. We're going to continue to keep these bands, inches of rain, 5 to 10 overall, isolated areas more than 10 to 15. And then by 6 o'clock tonight, we're getting that mostly cleared out of the Houston area, but still parts of the east and northeast Texas will have to deal with whatever Beryl is taking all the way really up to the Great Lakes, is where this storm is going to end up heading when it's all over with. Some rainfall totals, we're looking at those. I don't want us to focus on the exact location of these numbers, but getting the trend where we see these swaths of 5 or 10, most of us probably in the 4 to 8 range, and then we'll kind of continue to see those numbers add up. So let's wrap it up here a little bit and just sort of review. Beryl beginning to make its landfall right now. I think by the 2 o'clock hour, we will have an official report from the Hurricane Center, or close to the 2 o'clock hour, if not, of Beryl making a landfall. Widespread, we're going to see those winds of tropical storm force, and some folks closer to that landfall are going to see those hurricane force winds. All of us dealing with the rainfall, these numbers that we're talking about, 10, 12 inches of rain. That's a lot of rain, especially in a maybe 10 or 12 hour period. This is not something that's going to stretch out over several days. This is a relatively short time frame, so we will expect street flooding. And so that's why we want people to shelter in place, stay where we are for most of the time on Monday, so that we can have time for that water to recede, and we won't have people kind of moving around or trying to move around and having some problems with that. And then the same things with the winds. Stay where you are. The isolated tornadoes that will be kicked up as well as this system comes through. Stay in your safe place in your home so that you can shelter. As you move to that spot, remember to take a flashlight with you, because if the power goes out, I don't want you to be in a room with no windows and you get a little bit nervous by all the sounds. It always feels a little better to have that comfort of some light. So have a couple lights with you as you get to that spot, and stay as the winds are blowing, as the possibilities of tornadoes are also moving through. We're continuing to keep you updated. We'll be back for sure at 2 o'clock with another update, and we'll make sure we kind of progress through this storm together. Be safe this morning as Beryl is making its landfall.